Welcome, y'all. So you may be training wrong if dot dot dot. That was kind of like the little clickbaity title, I'll be honest, I tried to use here on some of the platforms. The point of that is looking at our training. We have an awesome guest here, Jeff. Thank you for joining us. Jeff Lee. Again, we got all the information below if you want to check out his programs, his company, all of that. But I figure we're just going to kind of hit the ground running. And the goal, what we're going to try and take away from today is actionables that you guys can actually use today and in your programming and in your fitness that is no fluff and just straight up action. So I figured what better person than you, Jeff. So thank you, by the way, for joining.
Appreciate you having me on, Mike. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, dude. And the first thing, like kind of right off the bat, was an exciting topic I wanted to dive into with you is like, again, this is a very broad kind of potential category, but the idea of like what actually matters in our training. I think you kind of alluded to it before we went live. To me, that jumps out as the intensity of things. I know there's a variety of things, but I'm curious your thoughts on like, what do you think is some of the biggest things that matter in training that people might actually be missing? Maybe that's more specificity that I can add to it.
Yeah, I'll start with this. With the intensity piece, it's strategically implemented stress. Like there are days that should be purposely harder, and there should be days that should be purposely you take the gas off. But it doesn't mean that your intent is different. It just means that maybe the movement that you're selecting itself is just a bigger driver, and that's what drives the intensity. And I can give you an example, like your squat day is easily the most intense day because it involves so much musculature. But a bench day is not so much. I would label that more of a medium intensity type of thing. And then deadlift or a clean would be a high intensity day as well because it's just there's so many things involved. It doesn't mean that neurally you're not getting activated because a bench will still do that and it's a great tool for it. But the bigger the movement, the more muscles involved, the higher the intensity. So you need to balance that with things like walking or light circuit work or even just do abs for 10 minutes because that's not going to kill you. It's going to burn, but it doesn't kill you.
Yeah, and so there's actually a framework. Do you mind if I like jump into a framework? I'm curious to maybe put these things in, and I'm wondering your
Amen.
thoughts on this. One of the like things I use in coaching, and this is not just in like strength, more of like a general health coaching umbrella, is these like four variables of having awareness, having an
Mhm.
intention, a clear action, and then obviously accountability. That's where coaching comes into play. So I think of awareness as like, okay, for example, what's our intensity? Having awareness to how much intensity and how do we either dial it back or dial it up. The intention is, okay, why are we using this intention or
Mhm.
intensity, I should say? And the action is, what's the movement? So my point of putting these variables into play is giving people context to how they can apply it. So you mentioned with the squat, for example,
Mhm.
um, and I'm kind of curious when you do that. This is like you had a great post the other day. Guys, I highly recommend you check out Jeff, especially on Instagram. Being able to look at it can be very tempting to do like the sexy new movement or like the sports specific thing. And we can get really complex. And I tend to want to get very complex with things at times, but like keeping it simple and effective. So thinking about that framework, I mean, take people at home because you don't just, that's the cool part. You work with athletes and with fighters specifically and all a variety of athletes, but even the like dad at home watching this, being able to apply their programming and their training when you're working with them. What do you think something that they can apply with their intensity or again, back to that mistake is like the intentionality to it. Where do you see most people pushing too hard? Do you see them not pushing enough or it just maybe depends on the person?
God, I think it really depends on the person. There's a sweet spot for everything. Like for fighters, for instance, they never really separate their days. Like with the guys that I train, we lift on days where you really bang or it's a hard roll on the mats. Like those are the days because those are neural days. Those are high demand days. And then the days that are more technique days, we drop it down. So all right, well now it's a cardio day. Cardio doesn't mean it's easy.
Right.
Cardio just means that we're regulating the range. So I'm thinking a heart rate of 120 to 140 is a lower day. And then again, like their hardest day is their live day in the gym. So when you're in fight prep, those final 8 weeks, so you really have 6 or 7 Saturdays to think about it because that's game day. That's the day we want to plan for, is the day that you're going to actually go into competition. That should be probably the hardest day of each week. So for me, that's always a third lift day. So we do some circuit work on top of hard circuit work. I don't mean easy circuit work. It's hard circuit work coupled with a heavy movement because it almost replicates the demand of the sport. So it gets heart rates up and running, gets the neural demand part. We're building more strength, and then they go and do their thing, and we're out. And it's like we're 1 week closer to raising the hand. So it's just gets them in rhythm. And I think that's kind of the bigger thing is even for a dad, you need to find some sort of circadian rhythm that you can follow. Now you need to follow, like think of your heaviest demand work days. Okay. Well, why do your hardest strength training day after a day that you're completely wiped out from meetings and travel and all the things that could possibly go wrong? Like just buy a band, bring it with you, knock it out that day. Then you know with coming home off the travel day, go for a walk because that's the time to bring it back down and reset yourself. So it's for everyone's different. You said it's like athletes, I think it's a lot more fun because it's you're pulling big levers and something's at stake.
Yeah, and I wonder if this feels at least from my experience of the some of the crew that you're training, right? Like when I think about like whether it's Justin or Christian or Deuce or even like with Johnny in the past, like there's no from my perspective, I'm curious yours. It's like it's not as much of a problem that they can push. Like you can let them off the leash and go. Like
Yep.
there's definitely the ability. It's almost sometimes the opposite. I don't know if you that was hard for me, even when I was an athlete working with my coaches, is like when it's time to pull back, when it's time to be intentional with recovery and not just like forcing it for the sake of forcing it.
100%. Like Christian was a guy before I'd worked with him that, I mean, he'd go hard all the time. This is just from what I've heard. And seeing his numbers come in, I think he topped out at like a 500 trap bar deadlift. In our last prep, I think he pulled 625 and it looked like it floated off the ground.
Yeah.
So it's just again being strategic about what you're trying to do and also allowing for stress to come off. We want things to ride in waves. You know, you catch the wave when you catch the wave, and that's a hard fucking day. Don't get me wrong. But when that wave comes back down, we need to accommodate for that. And also, I mean, the other piece that really gets lost is just the nutrition piece and making sure they're fed, because it's hard to go like you want to when you don't have a gas tank food wise. So the more fed that you can keep them for the longer period, probably the better.
Yeah, that's something I appreciate. You talk about the nutrition side of it too, because the other side, I'm wondering maybe your perspective on the performance oriented, not only for athletes and like high performance in the physical arena, but even
Yep.
like let's say the dad or someone that's I've been thinking of like let's say you were maybe an athlete, you had kids, you're letting that part of your life go and you're getting back into it is the ability to recover. The ability
Oh
to
yeah.
not just recover by like, okay, cool, I'm going to take 4 hours off or 6 hours off in between training. I'm going to intentionally fuel, hydrate, and then also get good night's sleep, do all those pieces. Cause that was the thing, I'll be honest, where I noticed I would not put as much value into. I was also my caffeine timing when I was in my early 20s.
Yep.
I learned a lot from managing my stimulant intake, if we're even doing like, caffeine and those types of things, and my sleep, because training wouldn't finish till 10 o'clock at night. And then trying to get to bed before 2 o'clock, I had to be very intentional to learn that process. So this is a long way of getting at the balance. Also, if you mentioned nutrition, you also have a great protocol from what I've seen is like the 3-2-1 kind of method, right? And
Yeah.
like being mindful of that in your macros, but also on the sleep side too, like being very intentional with, I would even like, as I got more into my mid to late 20s, like getting 9-10 hours of sleep, not 7 or 8, like really
Mhm.
pushing closer to 10. And again, you could just have total numbers versus the quality of sleep, but yeah, I'm curious even your perspective on that, the sleep side of it too, and the recovery aspect of it.
Yeah, like the sleep part is kind of a hard one. Um, it's one that I feel like if you feel like you're rested, it's more deep sleep than anything else. And like a thing like a Whoop will tell you that.
Yeah.
If your deep sleep is under an hour, then like it's kind of hard to get anything going. But the deeper or more restful your sleep can be, whether it's 6 or 7 hours or 9 or 10. Like for me, I don't sleep past 6 hours. So I generally go to bed at 11 p.m. and I get up at 5. It's just I'm on a clock. My dad's the same way. Like he sets his internal clock and he's up. So you really can't change that wiring, I don't think. but a nap during the day for sure can help you. Like just, close your eyes for 10 minutes and just remove all distractions, get your phone away from you, turn off the Wi-Fi in the house because that's another huge draw on you, whether you think so or not. Um, and just when all those levers aren't met, nutrition, sleep, start looking at things like contrast showers or Epsom salt baths that can really, increase the quality of your recovery. Even like banded stretching, which is like if you ever look up on YouTube the Dick Hartzell, DIC, Dick is his first name, Hartzell, Hartzell. He's got a band stretch routine on that thing that will turn you like stripper pole ready within about a month. So like it's all of it kind of rolls into one. If you're lacking in one area, we'll focus on that area for a while. You can't just do a multitude of things all at once. Basically just do a self-evaluation of where you're currently at, and then just work on one thing and improve that and move to the next.
Yeah, so that's actually something I kind of want to segue into. You talking about being intentional, or what I'm. Tell me if I'm misinterpreting what you're saying. Is like being intentional with your focus, right? And not trying to do all the things. Because if we let's say move 5 variables all at once, how do you know even what worked? I mean, I'm
100%.
simplifying
100%.
a little bit, but like, okay, cool. We're gonna move this one variable intentionally for a predetermined period of time, and then we get to reflect on the data and then make another adjustment. And then that's what's kind of cool, especially when you get to work with fighters or whomever the either athlete or your client is. And from my experience too, it's like you start to get into particular rhythms, right? Routines, saying, okay,
Mhm.
cool, like whether it's weight cutting or how they peak for a particular event, or even let's say your dad at home watching this, being able to, I notice like seasonally too, there's certain rhythms that I'll get into,
Mhm.
or I'll notice people get into, and depending on school letting out, right? Stress factors when we're traveling, being mindful of, hey, okay, you're going to be getting back. You're not going to be getting a lot of sleep. We're going to make that look a little potentially different than if you're like, hey, you got full night rest, not a very heavy caseload for the day or whatever your work day looks like. There we can really get after it. So, yeah, I wonder, like, even just the thoughts on like when you are picking one variable, you kind of already answered. So I'm just going to dive a little bit deeper for context so people don't miss it. Is when you're picking it sounds like it's pendant upon circumstance, right? And where someone's at, where
Mhm.
their goals are at, and where they're testing. I'm wondering because you actually sent me something really cool. Not only as it seems like as a part of school, but also an assessment tool that I thought was pretty awesome in being able to do certain movements and then it grades you. Or I don't want to
Yeah.
misrepresent what you're saying here, but or what its intention, but I think that's really cool. And also doing that not just for fighters, but let's say the dad at home that wants to like elevate his
Mhm.
health, wellness, his fitness, and it can kind of tier you accordingly too, which I think is really cool. And then you can pick maybe one variable and focus on that. But I'm going to stop ranting. I kind of want to kick it to you to see like if that even aligns with the intention of that assessment tool as well. Because yeah, you can use it for fighters, but I wonder even again the dad at home watching this or whomever in their 40s and 50s if they can find value in that as well.
Yeah, I think so because they're really general assessments. Like a 2-minute push up, it's going to tell you pretty much what your upper body strength is. If from a strength and an endurance angle, sit ups again, it's more strength endurance. Your pull ups is what I consider like the king of upper body lifts. How many maximal dead hang pull ups can you do? What's your 12-minute run time? I'm sorry, your 12-minute run distance. And then how long does it take you to bring yourself back down to 120 beats per minute after that? Because that's a big one too. We look at resting heart rate, which again, that's a key metric for everybody. The lower you can get your heart rate towards about 50, around that 50 range, the better you are. CO2 tolerance is another one that gets completely overlooked. So that's where the breath hold comes in. The more tolerant of CO2 you are, the harder you're going to be able to push. Um, and then 300-yard shuttles and a broad jump are the other metrics that it looks at. But yeah, it puts out a star chart for you, and it shows you, the weaker you are, the closer you are to the middle on something, you need to work on it. The farther it is out to the web, that's a strength, an area of strength. So you could really use that as a way to just, all right, here's where I'm at. Now, what's the next steps? And I've got the next steps already, so which is pretty cool. That's inside school. But it's a huge tool. It doesn't really look so much at the recovery piece, but if you think about resting heart rate, your resting heart rate spikes when you're under stress. Like the body only knows stress. It doesn't know where it's coming from. So if you're stressed from school, or if you've had a heavy workout, or if you just have problems at home with so and so, it doesn't matter. body only understands stress, and that's going to affect some things. And resting heart rate is the first thing that will spike up, and you'll notice that.
Yeah, so I kind of, speaking of stress, this is kind of a side step, but I'm
Mhm.
gonna tie it in. I'm just curious because one of the things, if I'm being honest, I've talked about this recently, and in general, is like I got to be honest, I struggle with having fun, and
Yep.
I mean, as like a dad, all the things that we're managing. So I like to ask people when I get to talk to them, like, what do you do for fun? As a dad, as a business owner, as like it's just a busy person that also manages life. Like, what's fun for you right now? Because I think that ties into stress too. Like, the more fun capacity and fulfillment we have, I think the more of a capacity we have for stress, it doesn't maybe necessarily eliminate all of it, but the capacity for it, I think, also goes hand in hand potentially.
Yeah. So, like, I really enjoy watching my kids play sports.
Mm.
I think that other dads that watch their kids play sports are hilarious because they take it way too serious when they got 9-year-olds out there. Like, I'm sorry, bro, but your 9-year-old is not MLB bound. Just let him have fun. So I think that's a lot of, for me, it's just a joy to be outside. I enjoy going outside for a long walk. It helps me clear my head. Um, the thing that I probably enjoy the most, and it's is coaching. Like I remember being a young strength coach, and just I would spend 80 hours in that room. It didn't matter. I would get in there at 4 in the morning to go train, and I would leave 6, 7 p.m. It didn't matter to me. Like, because just the energy you could bring in that room, it just lit it up. And then there was a period of time for me where I didn't have that, like from 2011 until about, how it was 2021, where I finally got back in. Other than that, I'd done remote programming, for during that time. So it's exciting to see results, but you miss that one-on-one interaction and feel in the room, and like you can feel intensity and you can bring intensity and you can drive it up and drive it down. And like right now, I'm like having so much fun because I'm doing this twice a day, morning and after school. And man, it makes my day go by like that. So I, my job, or my coaching profession, you could say, is where I have a lot of fun because like it's our rooms are booming right now. Like, kids are pumped. Like, we did what's called a reverse band bench yesterday.
Ooh,
So I
nice.
stick a light band on top of the rack and tie it to the bar. Guys are touching 300 pounds for the first time in their life, and they're freaking 15. So they're like, holy crap. Like, now you're getting a taste. Like, now you know what I'm excited about. Because every day I come in here and tell you it's a big effing day, because it is.
Yeah.
Like, they feel the intensity from me, they feel the energy, and man, the room just shoots up. So that's 100%, like that's my great joy right now.
Dude, I very much appreciate that. So, and that makes me think of actually like high school football, or so I only played
Yeah.
1 year of football, by the way. It was like JV, but I also enjoyed working out with the team in the off
Yep.
season and stuff
Yep.
like that. And it makes me think of like, and I don't know if they everywhere maybe it's different now, but like let's say you hit like a particular number, like all right, the 1,000 pound club, they have a shirt or whatever the thing is, like they read a shirt. Maybe even not about the measurables, but when you have like a team of people around you and you got that
Yep.
one person lifting and you got your spotters and you're pushing for that new PR, and
Yep.
just when you get it racked or when you get it up, the room lights. Like,
Yep.
I love the energy for PRs. Like, if you want a PR, that's the environment, right? Like, that's
Yep.
what I think is such an interesting dynamic of like, you could try and PR solo or like have certain spot that sure, but that type of electricity is amazing.
100%. There's nothing like it. Like, when I was at SEMO, our football team would test at midnight. So all we do is have a spotlight on two platforms, and it's squat day. And we had a kid who was an offensive lineman. Um, he box squatted 605, takes a step 3/4 of the way up, gathers it, and stands up. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen strength wise. And I've seen guys squat 1,000, and that dude, when he just steps and is like, ugh, stands up with it, puts it away. I was like, holy crap, I've never seen anything like that before. But like the room just like freaking exploded. Like, it's that kind of thing, like having people around you, like-minded individuals, like all towards that same goal. Like, there's nothing like it. And people can say that they had no excitement. Man, for me, like, there's nothing better.
Yeah, and there's even that's what like I appreciate about Rogue Combat Club
Yeah.
in Asheville, where you have a lot of people like Johnny Spot, and that's one thing I've recognized is like this is a sad intention I've set, but I'll just talk about it. Is like my intention for a period of time, I moved away where I'm like 35, 40 minutes from the gym, which isn't horrible, but it just added a layer of variability to it. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna get in there once a month for now. Just like getting there
Hmm.
once a month, be around it. Now as I'm moving, I'm gonna be about 20 minutes, 15 minutes away from the gym in like another month. I get to be in there weekly. And I can feel even just last week going in there, I was talking to Cord, who's one of the jujitsu guys, and like we were actually talking about some questions came in. He had some questions too, and some other people submitted some questions that I'll bring up here in a little bit. But it's like just that vibe, the energy between Deuce and like even when Christian's in there and
Hmm.
Jag, and like it's I very much value when Johnny's in there and like that type of energy. And also the other part is like the experience and the connections you have, like the bonding, the oxytocin, like that bonding component to it is, I think, so potent. The it's just such a strong driving force. So yeah, anyways, that's a long understanding. Like I really do appreciate your point of fulfillment and like how that can be fun and the connections that come from that and how that lights you up because they can see even just how you talk about it. Like body language doesn't lie. You know what I mean?
There was like I said, there's a time where I was away from it. Like my first 3 years of being out of the college scene, man, it was rough. Like I was suicidal as hell, man, because I missed that shit so much. And there's no way to replicate it. You can stim yourself up as much as you want, but nothing makes you feel like that. And trust me, I was ECA 3 times a day just to try to get some energy, just to feel it. But no, nothing compares to that at all because you said it yourself. It's the bonding part of it too. It's the people around you because they bring you up whether you want to be up or not. Um, I had an old boss a long time ago told me, he said, if you don't bring energy to the room and you bring the intention that you want into there. So if you come in and half-ass it, they're going to half-ass it.
Yeah.
So that fixed it for me. It's like, okay, well, you got to be on all the time. Like you need a nap after that after a while. But don't get me wrong. But when you come in there and you're lit up, there's no reason why they won't. And they just the kids take care of it themselves.
Yeah, and to your point, it's like it's electric, and it's almost like its own type of like bandwidth conditioning. What I mean by
Oh
that is
yeah.
like having that type of a day takes a certain level of bandwidth and energy that you like accumulate to. But then when you have this is a interesting. I'm curious your thoughts on like the energetic capacity. Like, yeah, we can have a physiological like capacity, right, for work. But I would
Hmm.
even think like the cognitive capacity. When you're in that type of there's a certain capacity and battery you've established for yourself, a workload that
Yep.
when you lose it, that to me also like that was like when I retired from fighting. Like I was like, all right, I'm not competing anymore in the like real fighting sense. I'll still do like jujitsu tournaments and stuff, which is like enjoyable. It was just different. Is like, yeah, what do you do with that energy? So that to your point, like I very much appreciate like the having that capacity and relighting you up. And then also you for having your kids to just be a part of that. Like you getting to lead them and be that role model is also just extra inspiration, I would speculate. I know that is from my experience. Like I have all daughters though, they're under 8, but like it's still just super exciting.
Yeah, like my boys. My wife posted a video yesterday. It was of my oldest when he was 3.5 or 4, and then my now 12-year-old. So they were both very little, and they're in there and they're jumping over top of one of those little red foam blocks.
Yeah, yeah.
The oldest was, and then she posted a video of Reese's box jump. He's hit a 42-inch box jump just standing with straight legs. And by
Dang.
straight legs, I mean he jumps and his legs are like this and just sticks it.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
dang.
so it's not tucking his legs, it's doop,
Yeah, just fit
stick.
almost. Yeah.
And like to think of it in that way, it's like, oh man. Like like time flies by so fast, but like the thing I've always wanted was the opportunity to have to get the chance to coach them and them to kind of see what I really can be like, other than just being dad and having to, you know, there's an authoritative aspect of it, but actually let them see me socially when I'm around the other kids, because I mean it's a totally different environment, totally positive in a different way, So it's great now to have that and to know that all my other three are going to come through that same room before I decide to hang it up. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. All right. So that's actually another component is like, so we have the aspects of focus on training, right? When it comes to an intentionality, I'll go back to intentionality. So
Yep.
there could be a performance dynamic. One of the things I wanted to like stack on top of that is as we get outside of athletics, not just like I feel like athletics is great to do the rest of your life. Like for
Mhm.
one, even if just for the fun, like find something that you can do and enjoy. It makes it a lot less resistance oriented, from my experience. But the point to all of that is when it comes to real life and like functional training, I'm putting it in quotes because it's like you could do a lot of things and we can get like really overly complicated. But I wonder when you think about dads, I keep going back to dads because that's who I
Yeah.
identify with nowadays. What are some of the things you think they should care about when it comes to their training? Like things we could take from the gym and apply to real life. Like I think of like, let's say certain grip strength things or carries. Like one of the things I think about, this is a weird one. If like, God forbid something happens, I want to be able to pick up all my kids and run. That's like
Mhm.
a really important thing to me. Like run a mile with like 100 pounds. Ideally, I'm not doing that a whole bunch because of the load and like all those things, but like
Mhm.
some like the weighted farmer carries, things like that. But it's a bit of a rant. I'm curious to kick from your perspective though, again, the training side in real life.
So are you asking from an exercise side what dad should be able to do?
Yeah, and like what and just in your opinion, from like a your coaching side of it and like what you know
Yep.
about like real life. Because like most people, we don't really need to run like a mile with like 100 pounds of weight. That's not
Correct. Correct. So I think that you should probably be able to do some form of squat with probably 1.25% of your body weight. That's more than enough strength to get to carry you through. Um, I've read something where you're the top 1% of the entire world if you can squat 405, which I thought that was kind of hilarious because a long time ago I was like, oh, okay, well that's not very much. Now I'm a little bit older and it's like, okay, well maybe 1.25 sounds a lot better because things creak like they don't used to. Um, you should probably be able to bench press your body weight. Pull-ups is the biggest one on my end. I think the bare minimum should be able to do 5 pull-ups. If you are closer to 10 to 15, I think that you're in a really good spot. In terms of like a physical challenge, I think everybody should do. I think everyone should do walking lunges for 1 mile just to feel what that is. And in one of my older programs, that was our test day. Is go out and all right, we've done work. Now go walking lunge a mile. And if you can do that, you know that you're in a pretty good spot because you have essentially, in my eyes, you have every physical capacity you need for your lower body and able to do that. And you've got a little bit of grit too, because it sucks doing any more than 5 or 10 lunges. Now couple that to a mile, and now we're talking. Um, and you kind of touched on it a little bit. Probably being able to run a mile and not feel like that you're about to pass out would be a good thing.
Yeah, having some sense of endurance.
Yeah, because that's a big one. Like you don't have to run though. That's kind of the thing. Like I think if someone gets on a bike, say a dad, get on the bike twice a week for 30 to 45 minutes. Go go for a 30 to 45-minute walk a couple of days a week. And you've covered pretty much every aerobic tool, every aerobic base that you need because you just need the base because that's what drives the heart. And the more efficient your left ventricle is, the more ejection fraction, like you have your heart doesn't have to work nearly as hard, no matter what intensity zone that you're actually at, because the hardware and the plumbing is there, and that's the big one is making sure that the plumbing's there.
Ooh, yeah. All right. So that's impactful. What so one of the things that I'll highlight, one of the things I always like to try and take away from conversation or pieces is like a one singular thing they can do is taking action on one thing. So it's like
Yeah.
to take all information and boil for everyone to do one thing. I know is not very simple. It's like it's asking for a lot to oversimplify, but thinking about a framework maybe on inviting
Mhm.
how someone can do one thing. And one of the things that jumps out to me is like, for example, using your assessment tool. Like, hey, get a baseline assessment of where things are at, because then that informs you what direction to potentially go in. And that's one of
Yep.
the things that jumps out to me is I would invite like for those of you considering this and like, wait, what do I do with this? Is like, yeah, do a baseline like assessment. Jeff has one, created it, and part of the community has, and that's accessible through. I want to make sure I don't misrepresent where they can access the assessment that you have. So I'm curious where could be the best way for them to get that? Is it through school? Is it through the website? Like, where is the best way for them to access that?
They can find that on the school community.
Yeah, perfect.
Um, Also, I mean, if they want the link, I can someone just reach out to me on Instagram. I'll shoot you the link because it's there. Like I look at I look at my body of work not necessarily as it's a one-to-one, but if I can teach one person and they can teach three and they can teach three, then guess what? I've done my part because at least the message is getting relayed. I might not ever die as a millionaire, and that doesn't matter. But if I've given enough people information that they need to be successful, then that's what really matters because it's more about being healthy and more about being of service to a community that's much bigger than me. And that's what matters.
Dude, that very so one of the things that jumps out of what you said is like a really impactful purpose for me is like transforming the world with health and empowering people in their bodies. Like my idea is like by the time I lay my head down for the last time in this existence is like I want to have a true impact. And to your point, it's not just like the okay, I need to personally talk to a million people or whatever the number is. It's like, yeah, just having the ripple effect of like that's why I love even I think about Justin, right? Like with what Justin's doing, it's not only just being and do like all of them actually, but like what's cool with Justin is like what he's created with his own business and like being able to see that development as a martial artist, as a fitness
Mhm.
person, as a trainer, as a coach. It's like think about now like the influence you've had on him, right? And what that does and the ripple effect that alone, plus all the other athletes you've worked with, the coaches, what you give inspiration to, the content you create. That I think is a really powerful. So I just want to acknowledge that. But yeah, the this is alone even getting at like what is one thing you think that you would invite for someone to take action on? Again, my biased opinion is like using an assessment tool like what you created, because that informs a lot of things. But what could be one thing that you would invite again for the person watching at home that they could take action on today that helps align their exercise selection or their training modality? I know it's like a loaded
You
question. It's kind
don't
of
even have to do the assessment. You need to have an internal dialogue with yourself. What are you pushing off that you're not doing? That you know if you do it, you're going to be better. And if you just circle that thing at the top of your list and like that's the thing I'm going to attack, then you're going to be successful. But you got to go all in. Like it's not a dip my toe in because that's not trying. That's not doing. Try is do or don't.
yeah.
Like to go all in on one thing and do that for 3 months and then look at your where you began, kind of monitor your process. You could journal. I don't care what it is that you do. If you're a person that has a hard time getting your feelings out, just writing on a piece of paper every day what's in your mind is going to make you a better person because you're going to be more self-aware. But in terms of fitness, you think of the one thing like, man, I wish I could do this.
Mhm.
Then freaking go all in. Why the hell not? What do you have to lose? Because it's just you.
Yeah.
Like no, the world's not looking at you to be like, ha ha ha, you failed. Like those people are assholes anyway. Like why would you listen to them? It's you against you, and that's the truth.
That's such a good one. So yeah, so something that like jumps. This is like a phrase I've used before. It's like sometimes I hear people say like I don't know a lot. I've done this before, but it's like I always will give pushback and be like, you do know. You're the expert on you. You live in your body every day. You know, like there's a part of us that knows, right? Maybe
Hmm.
we don't want to look at it. Maybe there's a part that doesn't want to acknowledge it. And all right, I get that. I've been there. I totally get that component. I'm
Oh yeah.
not throwing shade, but it's like you know. We all know, like to your point. So I appreciate what you're actually inviting. I hadn't thought about that as like a, yeah, do an honest check-in. And that's, I'll tie it back into that form of like, cool, have awareness, right? Bring awareness what it is. You have an intentionality of like, I'm going to go all in. And then you're clear on the action of what is all in. What does that look like? All right, cool. I'm going to make this up. Like, I'm going to do like one of the things I've been enjoying is like a progression for VO2 max training. I don't necessarily love running, if I'm being honest, but it's
Yep.
very accessible for me right now. So I just use it. So I'll do 4 minutes of just like zone five, like keep my heart rate above 170.
Yep.
And then I'll do 4 minutes walking. I do that for 4 rounds. So it's like 30 minutes,
100%.
right? Like it's accessible. It's not that crazy time. I do it 2, 3 times a week. Feels good. And like, like I'm working hard for those 4 minutes.
Oh yeah.
I like doing it for like jump rope, swimming. My point is like there's an action tied to it. And then ideally accountability and it, whether it's getting a coach, whether it's telling a friend, whether it's just sharing with a loved one, whether that's what I love about also the training room. Like think about that room. There's like natural accountability built in. People
Hmm.
know when you're not there. They miss you. There's like an aspect of like you bring a part of the equation to the table. Like you bring a part of the formula to it. That I think is really valuable from the accountability. I hear a lot of times with people when they were athletes and they don't anymore they miss that like accountability, that camaraderie, that part of it too.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's hard to work at a high level and then you wake up the next day and it's like I'm retired. Well, it's you got 50 more years. You're not totally retired. Things have changed. It doesn't mean that the dog ever left, has left the yard. The dog's just in its house, man. Let him out.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a good one too. Yeah, being able to like leverage that component of it and not pretend like it's not there. So yeah, I kind of want to like now pivot a little bit. We're gonna kick to some Q&A if that's cool with you. I
Yeah,
had some
man.
like, questions coming in. Also, this is like a thank you to our sponsor BioLore. So this is actually I want to take a moment here. This is where I like to call this out. So I'm really fortunate. We have a sponsor for this segment, BioLore. They're a sea moss gel company. The one thing I like to be very clear when it comes to like whether it's like sea moss gel I have behind me or they have gummies and stuff. It's like to me, dude, this is like the last 10% of the equation, if that. Like it's like it can be cool to have all this stuff, but what you talked about is like sleep, nutrition, intense, very clear training. That's like the foundational stuff. So I just want to be clear with everybody. While they're a sponsor, I like BioLore. I love what they do. I use their gummies and stuff. Like you can invest in that stuff, but I would be very intentional with before you start doing into that stuff, be very clear with these other parts. Like even what you said before, Jeff, being able to check in with yourself. Like, do you think the gap between you and your goals is CMOS gel? If it is, cool. Like, if you really honestly think that, that's great. Take action. But I'm willing to bet there's other controllable variables. Now, that doesn't mean I don't take it and I use it, and that could be a helpful component. But like, even if I miss it for a day, my goals, it's not like I'm drastically shifting my goals, to be honest with you. So, anyways, that shout out to them as a sponsor. I like to highlight that, but I also don't want to like, I don't like creating this illusion like it's some magic formula. But that's a transition into the questions. And one of the really reoccurring question that came in that was right away to put it is people are asking a lot about exercise selection and order, specifically around like, because you mentioned this before too, is like the CNS or a central nervous system, the tax around nervous system and exercise selection related to that, and how we can start to structure workouts. And whether it's like, I'm going to put a lot of the like taxing stuff first, then I'll have a little break. I'll pair it with less taxing. And I'm curious your thoughts when it comes to exercise selection, not only for like an athlete, but just your day-to-day person, how you like to look at that. Again, I know that's a very broad question. There's a little more specificity that will probably come in handy depending on who the athlete is and what's going on. But I'm just curious from that because that was a common question
Yeah.
coming in.
So I'll begin with this. I think that there are two main training days per week. You need to look at a day that's heavy lower body and more repetition upper body. And by repetition, I mean that's your bodybuilding for upper body day. So you don't touch a barbell during that part.
Okay.
Um, so your heavy lower body stuff should be a movement that's easily accessible for you at first. So begin with, say it's a squat or a leg press. Begin with leg press. Say it's just Joe Schmo off the street.
Yeah.
So work up to a heavy set of 6 to 10 reps. Make sure that you can control the weight, and then look to try to make a 5 or 10 pound jump each week on that big movement. Prior to that, I always like to do jumping because jumping is a skill that for the athlete it's key because power output is necessary. But also for the person that needs to become more athletic, one of the first things that goes is jumping. It's jump ability. They lose that reactivity within the ankles and the knees, and they're no longer able to express force, which is why they can't run. So heavy lower body, repetition upper body for day one, and we just flip it for day two. So it's going to be a heavy upper body, and it's going to be a repetition lower body. So like my heavy upper body day is going to be some form of bench press variation. A lot of people will say, don't do bench press. It's going to do X, Y. No, 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 no. Just find a bench press variation that works for you. I have a specific pattern that I bring guys through because it's freaking foolproof every time. But again, look at what you're able to do. If your shoulders have restricted range of motion because you're older and you have rotator cuff pain and whatnot, put yourself on a Smith machine and put it on an incline because that'll take a lot of that stress off. And then pair that with some sort of rowing movement or a vertical pull. This could be lat pull downs, could be pull ups. And then you've got your, again, repetition lower. So that's your hamstring work, that's your quad work, your direct work, single leg work, and always finish with some kind of low back and ab work because that's a missing link for a lot of people. The older you get, that's another first thing that's going to go is your low back strength, which causes you to, tilt your pedals forward, and now your belly's hanging out, and now you've got back pain. Now you go to a chiropractor, it's causing you problems. If you're going to do a third day, throw in a big overhead press. Could be a machine overhead press, like this, is what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
with a barbell if your shoulders are good. If not, dumbbells do just fine, and then just some calisthenics as a circuit after that. Because again, your ability to control your body within space is what matters. And if you can't control your own body, how can you expect to control someone else's? So, so once you do all that, it all takes care of itself. You beautify in about 4 weeks, and you're a totally different person.
Yeah, so I wonder if this like feels true. I don't want to misrepresent like West Side Barbell methodology, but it sounds
Yep.
like a similar like kind of like
Hmm.
foundational capacity, and I appreciate that. And I've looked at like different even modalities around it, but that helps. Like it sounds like again, keep it simple, right? Like keep a
Yep.
structure, because then the cool thing is what I'm hearing you say too is you can keep this structure, and
Yep.
then you can start to cycle exercises. Because that's the thing
Oh
I
yeah.
like to think about, like a year block, right? When we start to like really pull back, it's like okay, I can take a very similar structure and we can rotate in. Let's just say like incline bench press, and I have a particular set and tempo and rest period. And I
Hmm.
can take almost the same workout structure and then just, all right, either change the angle, change the tempo, change the timing or rest period, and you
Yep.
can get a different like aspect of it and almost a different aspect of the program. So it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Now, I know people can argue like, oh, that's not optimal, whatever. It's like, I don't know. I think sustainability is what's optimal. Like what's going to be
Yep.
sustainable, what you can do. You mentioned even rotate. Like ironically, I'm actually going through PT right now because I have rotator cuff tears in both my shoulders and a
Yep.
labrum tear in my hip, which is just par
That's
for
painful. That's painful.
yeah, it's fun. Part of the fun for just fighting and martial arts. Like I very heavily checked with my left leg, and that's like the side thing knows a lot of force absorption and other things. Um, Also dealing with like I don't know why this would ever come, but like I've mentioned this in the past and just not being able to talk with you. Like I've herniated disc both in my like lumbar and cervical and like some of those things,
Hmm.
which doesn't have to be a complete like stopper. It's just being able to work around it, right?
Yep.
And that's the thing you mentioned, being able to modify, but you still use a structure. Like that
Yep.
structure still seems to hold true. And the one thing I know this isn't as accessible for everyone, but I love and I miss this when I used to live in New York. I had a pool. Is having water workouts. And now where I'm
Mhm.
actually moving, we're gonna in the apartment complex, there's gonna be a pool. That's one thing I or go to the Y, right? Like
Yep.
I really enjoy water workouts. This is a side note. This has nothing to do with exercise selection. I just want to throw that out there. I really enjoy that,
Mhm.
especially for my athletes or fighters. I would notice that was helpful for like impact, but still be able to get a really good work or recovery,
Oh,
just
for sure.
floating and all of that.
Yeah, back when I was at Canisius College, we do water workouts once a week. It's kind of funny. Like I had a kid from Africa, and he was completely terrified of water. The guy was 6'7", and he would not go in 3 foot water. It's like, dude, you got a belt around you. It's holding you up. He's like, no, 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 no water. So it's real interesting, but it's a good way to keep your heart rate up. It can crank it up. You can do some circuits with that. It's like 30 seconds hard, 30 seconds easy.
Yeah.
Just go on for 10, 15 minutes, and really they're done, and it doesn't put that joint banging on you. So it's a great tool.
Yeah.
And and you also said like the rotation of exercises, which is what I do all the time. Like I get video from all my guys that train me. I train online, and I look for weak points in the chain. And it's all right. Well, if you suck out of the hole, like you can't get out of the bottom of a squat. Okay, well, let's get you to a high box squat, or let's put you in a position at that sticking point, and then drive out of that and get stronger. And next, then we'll cycle into a new movement, usually like a Zercher box squat or something like that, which is money. I mean, it is an exercise that cures all, and it doesn't have that cervical pressure. It simulates for grappler. It's one of the best things you could possibly do. And I could tell you this because I was at the Olympic Training Center up in Michigan where we trained our Greco guys, and it was a key metric. With that, as that Zercher squat went up, they got better on the international level. So that was part of our testing protocol that we did. So Zercher squats are one, if you're a grappler, that's one that you should probably implement. And then from there, put them back on the box, put the bar on the back, box squat again, all ailments are gone, weights are skyrocketing. So really that's for me, a 3 or 4 block period, we're talking 12 to 16 weeks and you got a bigger squat.
Yeah, not I'm to your point. Like, I love Zercher variations,
Yep.
just in general. Like, also, like, this is a weird, maybe variable, but I thought of it as like as a dad. Like, I
Oh
don't know. I
yeah.
think there's some interesting like translation or just value. Like, listen, if you could do Zercher squats, you could do like, let's even say one to one ratio of your body weight for Zerchers for like whatever rep range, or even
Hmm.
1.25, and you can handle that. Like,
You're
you're gonna have
strong.
yeah, like you're gonna have a not so bad time with it. Cause I think of my daughters, right? Like, I'm fortunate. My daughters still want me to hold them. They're all
Yep.
like 7, 4, or I'm sorry, 7, 6, 4, and 1.
Yep.
At some point, they're not gonna want me to hold them anymore. But
Yep.
as long as they want me to hold them, I want to be able to hold all my kids. That's a
100%.
really important priority to me. So being able to have something like a Zercher or a variation to that, and being able to have some kind of carry to it, really, I think I appreciate that component of it too. So
Yep.
yeah, that's a helpful recap is like in the exercise selection and order. So this is like another question that kind of came up that maybe pairs with the video that you made the other day is in like the specificity, right?
Hmm.
So those of you, again, make sure you're following Jeff on Instagram. That's like my takeaway from this too. That's another actionable you could take away for this. But and again, you alluded to it. We don't have to go into the exact ratios, but the idea of, and maybe it's not exactly sport specific, I should say, but this is one thing I'm curious your thoughts on is like planes of movement. And I'll try and word
Yep.
that differently for people watching. So instead of thinking like frontal, sagittal, and transverse, like lateral movements versus like moving forwards and backwards,
Yep.
and like rotational things like twisting and turning. I'm
Yep.
because like I tend to again when I'm leaning on a lot of squats and lunges and Bulgarian split squats and things like that, I'm moving in a particular plane, but adding in either rotational things or
Yes.
lateral movements. That's where I've honestly I've had a hole in my game for a period of time. I've been very intentional lately on lateral and rotational stuff to
Yep.
help bridge that gap. So I'm curious your thoughts on like not getting stuck even in our exercise selection into that like moving in one plane.
Yeah. So you said it right there. Like the powerlifting movements themselves lock you into those movements. So for bench press, for instance, I do a lot of rotational med ball slams after them. So you'll do a heavy set of bench, you'll do some kind of shoulder isolation just to keep that part healthy because you need armor, and then right into like a rotational slam or right into a slam that's straight through the feet because the rotational part is what gets lost. And you see a lot of kids, mainly when they go from high school into college, and they're more powerlifting based programs in college, they'll start to get a little bit locked up. So being able to implement things like that really helps. In terms of like the lateral movement itself, I think something like a lateral squat where your feet are wide, your toes are pointing straight ahead. You could do like a Cossack squat where you're basically your ass to ankles on one end, which that's going to test mobility. Your groin will be bulletproof. Um, I'm going to kind of eat my own words here though too, but I think a lot of people, if they would sumo deadlift before they did any other type of deadlift, I think they would be a lot better off anyway, just because of the hamstring, the glute, and the adductor strength that it delivers, because it allows those lateral squats to be more effective later on. So those are things to kind of consider, but I almost always will pair a jump with a heavy lower body movement. Even like on a lunge, we do Zercher split squats right now with our football guys, and Deuce is doing them right now in his program too
Nice.
because it builds so much horsepower. It's not even funny. And then we'll pair that up with a single leg box jump. So we do something heavy, we do something light. So you're burning candles at both ends, and you get more out of it. And so that's kind of my recommendation. Even I'm going to get a little wonky here. Even something as simple as rope flow can unlock someone's back. And I know that for a fact because the more I do rope flow, the less I see a chiropractor. And I could feel like I can move around better. And you can find a winding rope on Amazon, I'm sure. Um, and you can get a heavier one, you can get a light one. But once you start to learn how to move your body to move the rope, man, it's a totally different world.
Ooh, yeah, I appreciate that. It's like this is a weird kind of maybe tagging is I think of like one of the jobs I had is like Tai Chi. So at one point I worked with like a geriatric population. They sent me to do certain types of Tai Chi training specifically for medical integration in geriatric populations. And like again, I'm not saying we need to dive into like the movement of energy per se,
Mhm.
but being able to have like body awareness and control and like even the like movement orientation and
Mhm.
lubrication, as it were, if I oversimplify it, is valuable. And that's like, so this actually segues another question that comes in is like quite popular is the idea of injury prevention, and if
Mhm.
there should be like separation between training for injury prevention versus like our training. And maybe what I mean by that is like, so we have these like blocks, right? You have, let's say, these 2 and/or 3 day blocks.
Yep.
You then add on top of that, do you have separate dedicated days, or is it like, hey, we just change how we warm up and change how we cool down, or it just kind of feeds into it naturally with how you're programming?
Yeah, a lot of the warm up stuff I've done this since I was at SEMO, which we integrate all of our activation with the warm up. So you go from dynamic warm up into hip activation into ankle activation. Like the ankle activation for me comes as like pogo jumps. So you get that ankle really flexible, really going. And like last year, I could tell you we had a without even running, one of our wide receivers dropped 3/10 off his 40, ran a 4.6 without even doing anything. It was on lasers. He went from a 4.9 to a 4.6 just by doing pogo jumps. So people want to say, "Oh, well, you need to sprint to get fit." No, no, no. You need to jump, and then if you sprint afterward, great for you. But if you live up in the tundra of Saskatchewan and all you can do is jump in a 5x5 area, dude, it'll make you faster. Hope I answered the question there because I kind of zigged and zagged.
No, no, definitely do. Like, there's the answer. Well, here's what I took away is like how we can intentionally incorporate it. As
Yeah,
I'm gonna put the warm up as the oversimplified category, the
yeah,
precursor to the training, and then the activation movement. That's like, because it's like people are always, especially as we age, and something comes
mhm,
up either for, and there's this maybe story that'll be like, oh, I don't want to get injured, or I don't want to get hurt, or like
yep,
that's why maybe I'll just run, or I
yeah,
don't deadlift at all. And I guess that's another question. This is curious when it comes to the deadlifts or certain types of either Olympic lifting and or powerlifting. I
yeah.
know there's a lot of technique that can be oriented to it, so people can get intimidated. I wonder what you feel makes it most accessible when it comes to deadlift variations. Like I've heard a
Mhm,
lot of, and I've like, hey, trap. I'm a big fan of trap bar
yep,
deadlifts when
100%.
possible. Like just can be more forgiving, for maybe lack of a better term, and or less technique. Not that you don't need technique, but
Yeah.
just facilitates a movement. So I'm curious your thoughts on when it comes to that even part of the exercise selection and like injury risk, quote unquote.
I look at being weak as the biggest possible risk of injury.
Yeah.
If you are weak and you have a weak muscle area, you can guarantee that that will get injured at some point. You mentioned the deadlift specifically. So trap bar deadlifts are the one. Like if you can't do anything, you can get yourself into a three-quarter squat and you can stand up with something. That is that transfers to every aspect of life. You will always have to pick up something heavier than what you want to have to pick up. So by getting stronger in that plane, you're better off. If you don't have a trap bar, there's a thing called a rack pull where you set the pins right below the kneecap. Just make sure your chest is up tall. You'll always be able to see the numbers and just pull that puppy up. I like sumo rack pulls because again, I like that adductor interaction. But you know, rack pulls are freaking money, and it's a really cool movement after a while because you can really pile on some freaking weight. But just getting into it and getting your body into position is key. So if you have a restricted range of motion, you start with a rack pull and then you just work your way down pin wise from where you started to where you're on the floor. So being able to get stronger up here and all right, okay, well, I pushed to 315. I'm gonna drop a pin. I'm gonna start back where I started and just work your way back up. And it doesn't matter because life is this indefinite rat race that you have. So what's it matter if it takes you 3 years to get down to the floor for a deadlift? You're stronger in every other position except for that one. So that you're in a pretty good spot. But trap bar would be my first pick, and then rack pulls would be second.
Ooh, yeah. So this is actually a separate kind of a question that comes in. I'll just kind of put it in here because I think about, you mentioned before also, let's say using a reverse lift or support, like band supported, maybe for
Mhm.
another term, or like being able to also have accommodating resistance with bands or chains
Yes.
or different types of things like that. So I'm curious when it comes to accessories, the specific part of the question is accessory type of equipment that
Mhm.
is a good bang for our buck, whether maybe it's like chains or being able to, like, I'm biased to bands, obviously. So like
Yeah.
I'll put that in there. But I'm curious that when it comes to your training equipment that you see is a really high return on investment.
Be bands. Bands is number one because they're so versatile. Like you can pick 4 different resistances and you have an unlimited amount of exercises you can literally do. From rows to curls to push downs for your triceps to shrugs to, good mornings. Heck, you can put a band behind you, anchor your feet and do sit-ups. We call those Rambos, and they're awesome. So really you can do a full body training session just with bands and you're completely set up.
Yeah, and I
And you
appreciate.
put them on top of a bar though, you better have a base level of strength first of all. Because that's the other piece is that stuff can take a heavy, especially if you're banding from the bottom, that's a heavy jar on you. So you need to make sure that you have a base level of strength before you attempt that.
Yeah, you kind of so I wanted to circle back to what you said before though too is like let's say put 315 on the bar and you also have like the band support or band
Yep.
assisted to just get lift off or even like assisted plyometric jumps and like being able to get really explosive dynamics there. That's where I see some cool I don't know, just like exciting training variations that
Yep.
really translate not only to performance, but I think for just the day to day and like also changing it out, like kind of making it fun. I think there's something cool. Like
Oh
my
yeah.
kids right now, like even like I have a pull up bar in one of the other rooms. And I put the bands on it. And they just love bouncing on that thing. It's just
Oh
like
yeah.
something inherently about it that's fun. So I think
Yeah.
that brings some even joy into our training too.
Yeah. Band assisted jumps is something I've done for a long time. Saw Cal Dietz I saw Cal Dietz's slide deck off a conference that he did in 2010. And I called him. I said, "Oh, what can we do that's different for jumps that's going to get more out of it?" He's like, "Well, strap a band to the top of the bars and let them go." So we threw that in for a summer, and our freaking jump heights went off the map. So it's, and that builds a certain level of reactivity that you're not accustomed to because you're that higher off the ground, which means you have to absorb that much force when you come back through, and then you can push back through. So it's kind of a game, but at the same time, I mean, it prepares the joints for something that otherwise they might not get any use out of. They might not ever have that feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's it. At least to me, it does. And then I think about like even like how much time we're spending on the ground, the like quick turnover of it,
Yep.
like even the
Yep.
central, like certain training things that it affords and like inviting as a stimuli for the body, or at least like a training as it were.
Yep.
But yeah, I appreciate you also entertaining the questions. This is where like I kind of realized with my daughter, I can hear my daughter free. Can you? How's the audio sound? Do you hear her like scream in the other room, or
Yeah, a
is it?
little bit, man. Because I got kids, so I know what it sounds like.
You have the trained ears. I don't know if you've ever been in public and you're just yes, like right now is like we would call like this is the witching hour. So I'm like, all right, that's my prompt. Like I'm probably gonna have to start to wind it down for the podcast. But yeah, again, I'll just reiterate, guys. Make sure you're following Jeff on Instagram, on school. You got the website. We have everything plugged. And you're watching not the live, you're watching the replay. That means below we have everything. Also, if you're watching on the website, because this is going to be a blog post too, and I'll have to put some other stuff. I'll get some images to put with this. So I have a blog post from it. We'll have it on our newsletter. We'll also have the podcast. You'll be able to see this if you're watching the replay or we repurposed it. We're going to have some like little chops. I'll get all this stuff out to you too, Jeff, so you have all of that.
Awesome.
And yeah, I just thank you for taking the time and just yeah, all the fun and all that you do. Thanks for like just dude, what you do, man. Like I genuinely appreciate this. Like, cause I don't know if it sounds like obviously you care, but like if you really do understand the impact, because I've seen from like I've known Johnny maybe 9, 8 years, like you've known him way longer, and like just being able to see like what and the reason why he believes in you, and then with Deuce and with Christian and with Jag. And like I've seen these dudes from almost their first day in the gym to now because of the work you get to do with them. It's just, I don't know. I really appreciate it just as someone that's like a peripheral of their life. Thank you for like what you invest in these guys and like what you just do and the support. And also from a coach, like for that you work with kids and how you support them. Like I appreciate that. So this is a long-winded of saying all the thanks and I appreciate you.
I appreciate it, man. Like me and Johnny go back to 2004, man. Like I remember you didn't see Buck Wild Johnny Buck.
Dude, yeah, I can't even fathom because he'll tell like some stories, some aspect of stories. So I'm like, I can't even imagine, you know.
Yeah, he was Buck Nasty is that's 100% him.
Well earned. It sounds like a well earned name, you know.
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate you having me on. It's been a blast, though, dude.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm gonna wrap it up. We'll do all this. Thank you guys again. Make sure and I apologize. There's like some comments and questions. I was just like people were saying hey that I just kind of like breezed through. I tried to comment on it, but yeah, we'll definitely I'd love to have you come back on. We'll dive into more things. I'll send you some follow-up stuff after this, but I'm literally going to go like turn this off, go tag in with Hope, and hopefully we didn't miss the window. But yeah,
Thanks,
Jeff, yeah,
man.
everybody, have a great rest of the day.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right, appreciate you. Take care.